Hey there guys, today we're going to be taking a look at Overwatch 2 running on the Ryzen 5 5500U. Now the game is currently running with these graphics settings right now, which are pretty much the lowest settings, but we do have dynamic resolution scaling enabled. And that means that the game itself will try to just fluctuate the resolution anywhere from 100% of whatever the base resolution is down to as low as 75% with a target FPS of 144. Now what this means in practice is that the game is essentially going to be running at 75% resolution at all time. Now jumping in at the stock 15-watt TDP of this chip, running the game at the full 1080p resolution with, of course, that dynamic resolution scaling enabled, we are getting an FPS average of 71, which is actually pretty nice, but it's the 1% lows that really drag down the whole experience. Getting 1% lows that are pretty much in the mid-20s means that overall we're having a pretty rough experience here. It's not unplayable by any means. If you pay attention to the frame time charts, it's mostly consistent a lot of the times, but there are moments of stutter here and there that overall drag down what the experience is like here. So it's not necessarily going to be the best experience, but it's actually not too bad. Those 1% lows really just show you that there will be the occasional stutter here and there that is consistent enough to essentially become annoying, but nothing that would, I would say, ruin the overall experience of trying to play the game like this. But of course, we can always drop down the base resolution to try to squeeze out a little bit more performance. But overall, 1080p is doable with that resolution scaling enabled. And of course, you can set a lower target of around 60. I just went with 144 hertz because really the game feels rough to play at 60 a lot of the time. You squeezing out as much FPS as you can really helps to balance out the fact that overall the experience that we're getting here can be pretty rough. But of course, I was using an external monitor that lets me actually utilize that higher FPS. If I was just using the built-in display, I would pretty much just keep it as is at 60, which is the default setting for the resolution scaling. But of course, dropping down to 900p with, of course, all of the settings remaining the same and of course the resolution scaling still enabled, you can see here that while we get a slightly better experience in terms of our averages, those 1% lows really are not seeing much of an uplift at all. They're essentially around the same range. What that means is that overall the gaming experience is going to be relatively rough. It's not going to be the smoothest thing. It's going to be doable. If this is your only way of playing this game and you really want to play it, you can get used to this. I think if I was growing up and this was the only system that I had, I would pretty much become accustomed to this and I would continue to play. So don't take this as me saying that this is completely unplayable or anything like that. It's definitely doable. It's just one of those things where it's not going to be the greatest experience in the world, but we are also talking about a very budget system here. So the fact that it is at least able to run this at pretty decent averages is going to be overall a nice time, but just temper your expectations when it comes to the occasional stutter and the overall experience when it comes to 1% lows, because those really low 1% lows kind of drag down the overall experience that we're getting here. Certainly doable, but considering that we're already lowering the resolution down to 900p and we're running at 75% of that pretty much all the time, it just overall does not seem like the greatest time, considering it is an esports type title, which these tend to be a lot lighter, but it is at least doable here. Of course, dropping things down all the way down to 720p sees us actually get some really nice averages, but those 1% lows are really not seeing any uplift whatsoever. And what this means is that we are getting a really rough experience all around. Now, there are some pretty major fluctuations between 1% lows and those averages. It feels really smooth to play a lot of the times, but you will see that there will be moments where the frame times will spike up and it can really drag down the overall experience. Of course, this is at the stock 15-watt TDP. We can try to raise the TDP to maybe potentially uplift those 1% lows. The averages look really nice at this point, though the game resolution is running at this point pretty low. But Overwatch is one of those games that actually doesn't suffer too much from having this low resolution because a lot of the engagements aren't from super far away. You're usually up close and personal with the enemy, so you aren't going to have a tough time seeing them. But it is those 1% lows that just drag down everything about this. You can, of course, raise the TDP up to 25 watts and see if we can get a nice little uplift in those 1% lows to make that 120 hertz average that we're getting right now a lot nicer. Of course, with raising the TDP up to 25 watts, we can see here that it really didn't do much to improve those 1% lows at the full 1080p resolution, with, of course, the dynamic resolution scaling still set to that automatic where it goes goes all the way down to 75%. So really, there was no uplift to be seen here. The averages are only slightly better, but really nothing measurably noticeable because of the fact that those 1% lows are staying within the same range. And unfortunately, that is something that consistently kept happening at any resolution that I ended up setting this to. So we'll jump immediately down to 900p so that you can see that there is no noticeable difference. It's extremely disappointing to see that even though we're getting good averages here, it's just not translating to any noticeable improvement really, because those 1% lows are just dragging down the whole experience. So in general, it kind of just means that we're having a decent enough experience if this is all you can really do, but I think that the vast majority of people would like to at least have a little bit better than this, because there is going to be a noticeable consistent stutter throughout the whole gaming experience, and you'll notice that there are just those spikes that happen in the frame times there, and that is that stutter that I'm talking about. And unfortunately, even at the full 25 watt TDP with the resolution all the way down to 720p with the resolution scaling still going down all the way to 75%, it pretty much means that we're not really getting anything in terms of an improvement here. So if you're looking to play the game, you might as well play it at the full 1080p resolution, because it's really not going to be that noticeably different than if you just drop down the resolution. You'll see the frame time chart, there are still those consistent spikes that happen throughout the entire gaming experience. That means that you're just going to have this consistent stutter throughout all of it. Again, if this is the only way you can play this game and you really want to play it, by all means go right ahead. Just go in knowing that there is going to be this stutter that there's not really going to be anything you can do about, and hopefully it's not enough to completely ruin the gaming experience for you. As for me, thankfully I don't have to continue to play the game like this. I'm sure I could. I mean, I pretty much spent the entirety of the day gaming like this, and after a while you really start to not notice it as much, though it's still always present there. And in big battles, when a lot of ults are being activated, having that noticeable stutter can really make things rough, especially when you're going up against enemies like a tracer that are kind of just zooming all over the place, and it's hard to keep track of things when you have that just micro stutter that ends up happening when you're trying to just look around you. So certainly a rough experience, and I was hoping to see a little bit of improvement here. If that micro stutter was just not present, these would be really fantastic levels of performance, but unfortunately, because that is present there, it overall drags down the whole experience. But I hope that you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe. Check the links down below to see if you want to pick up a system with this specific chip, and I will see you guys next time.